So, as you just saw, we're going to be creating a third-person shooter in this video. For this, we're going to be using the following assets that you can see on screen. All the links to them are down in the description. Some of them are from the Unity asset store, some of them are my own. So, let's go ahead and create some blocks. Here's my Unity project, and the first steps that we need to take are actually quite simple. First, in the case that you're using the third-person character controller, go over here to Player Follow Camera, and Cinemachine, click on Upgrade Now. Then, click Upgrade Entire Project to Cinemachine 3. With our project now updated, the next step is to import the animation rigging package. For this, you can either go over here and go to My Assets, or go to Window, Package Manager. Then over here, you want to search Animation Rigging Package. It's actually Animation Rig, what you gotta put, click on it, hit Install. With the Animation Rigging Package imported, the next step is to go ahead and configure our animator and do the code. We'll begin with the animator. For this, go ahead and if you're using Unity's default solution, just find Player Armature, click over here, double click on it. Otherwise, find whatever your animator is. Over here, we need to make a few adjustments, especially for strafe movement. First, we want to right click and we're going to create a substate machine. I'm going to call this movement. Then we'll go ahead and drag this state over here. Open this up. In here, we'll go ahead and add a new blend tree. For this, we'll do create state from new blend tree. I'm going to name this strafe movement, or just strafe blend actually. Then this one, I'm going to name it to analog blend. Before we can make these transitions, we need to first create a few parameters. For this, we'll go over here to the Parameters tab, and we'll click on a new one, and we'll create float. We're going to call this X with a capital. This is very important to make sure that it's capital. Now we're going to do another one called Y, and we'll do a bool called aiming. First, let's set up our transitions between analog and strafe. We're going to make a transition over here, and we want to remove the exit time, and for the conditions, we want to just do aiming. In this case, we want it to be false. Then we're going to do the same process, but from analog to strafe, and we're going to make it true. Then we want to look over here and click here, and you can see we got a transition over to in air and to jump start. So for in air, it's free fall true. So we're going to right click, make transition, states in air. Then for the conditions, disable the exit time and do free fall true. Then the next one is jump start, which you can see it's jump true. So we're going to make transition, states, jump start. Then for this, we're going to select it and we're going to do jump. Then we have over here the actual transition from the landing over to the analog blend. We need to make the same but for the strafe blend. So let's go up one layer and drag from jump land over to movement, states, strafe blend. Then we want to check the analog blend transition, And we can see that over here it's just at the end and it has no conditions. So we're just going to tweak this a little bit, put it something like here. And that's it. The only step that remains is to create the torso layer for the actual movement animations and aim and shooting for the weapon. For this, we're going to go over to layers and we're going to add a new layer. First, I'll name this one to be called legs. Then we're going to go over to the movement substate machine and we're just going to copy the analog blend, so Ctrl Z. Then over here, we want to go ahead and I'm going to rename this to torso. Paste the new blend in. You then want to go over to the assets folder, over to game, animations, and over here you have these animations. Just to be clear, this is on the description, so just find it there and drag it into your project. Go ahead and open up the weapons. And over here what we want to do is first we want to drag in the aim rifle animation. And we're going to make a transition from analog over to aim and from aim over to analog. The one from aim to analog, we want to add the condition of is aiming is false, and then for the other one, we want to add the is true. Both of them should have the exit time disabled. We'll then go ahead and drag the fire animation and make a transition from fire over to aim. We're going to make this if aiming is true and we want to leave the exit time enabled. Then we'll make another one over to analog, and in this case we're going to disable the exit time and we're going to make aiming is false. On your layer, make sure that the weight is set to 1, and all we now need to do is create a mask so that we're only playing for the upper half of the body. For this, we'll go back to the animations folder, create a new folder called masks, and inside here, right click, and we're going to create an animation mask, avatar mask, Then go ahead over here and click over here, and for the avatar mask, assign the torso. Now, if you're on an older version of Unity, you might need to create a duplicate of this and call it main, and then assign over here to the legs blend. As of Unity 6, this is not required, so just keep that in mind if you get any errors. Now, over for the torso mask, what we want to do is just select the top half. So for this, click it, open here, and then just disable all of this. And before we finish, all we need to do is assign the actual movement animations. Let's go over to animations, and first we want to go over to analog blend. And over here, go to the weapon folder, select analog blend, and then open it up. For the idle, we want to drag in this idle animation, right? Idle rifle. We want to drag this one in. Then we want to drag the walk for the walking, and same thing for the running. Now go over to your legs layer and go over to the leg blend folder. Inside the movement substate machine, go ahead and open up Strafe Blend. And what we want to do over here is the blend type. We're going to set it to 2D simple directional. The first one is going to be X and the second one is going to be Y. Then we want to add 5 states. For the first state, we want to use the idle animation. So for this, in my case, because we're only using the legs, what you want to do is you want to find the idle character that comes with Unity. We'll do that in a moment. First, let's go ahead and drag the default animations in. For walk back, over here, these are the values you want to assign. And for the idle, what you want to do is go over here to analog blend and select the idle. It will take you to it. Go back to the Strafe Blend and go ahead and assign the idle. With the animator now finished, we can go ahead and set up a weapon model. It's actually quite easy, so don't worry. I'm going to be using the one that I left down in the description, so if you haven't downloaded it, just go there or use your own. For this, we're going to go over to Big Root Games, Asset Packs, Stylized Weapon, and now if you're using this and you go to Materials folder, you'll notice that some of them are pink. Go ahead and select those, and then go Edit, Rendering, Materials, Convert Selected Built-in Materials to URP. Proceed. With them now updated, we can go ahead and add the model. So go one folder back, go over to Prefabs, pick whichever one you want, and drag it over to the armature. But we want to drag it over to the right hand. So click on whatever you have here and it should pop the right hand. So just drag it in there. You will see that the weapon, it's probably either tiny or gigantic. So yeah, you can see it there. For this, I already have the values preset, so you can just copy mine. So these are the values that I'm using. You can go ahead and copy them, or if you have your own model, just use whatever fits. Then you go ahead and remove this script. So right click, remove component, and let's impact the prefab. And as the final step, we'll go ahead and add the muzzle flash effect. For this, it's over on prefabs, VFX M4, drag it into the weapon, and again, same thing, I'm just gonna use predefined values, so you can go ahead and do that too. If you go ahead and hit restart now, or play, you can see that it will actually do the effect properly. The last thing that I will do, and that you should probably do yourself, is remove play on awake, and stop action, just set it to none, so it doesn't destroy after it plays. One last thing I forgot about the model, go ahead and where it says assault rifle, remove the mesh collider. As you guys can see, if I go ahead and press aiming, our character goes ahead and aims. If I disable it, it goes back to it. So we're good. Alright, now that we have our aiming actually working, we can go ahead and get coding. So for that, we'll first select the player armature, and we want to right click on the third person controller, edit script. Then we also want to go over to our game folder, and inside here we'll create a new folder called scripts, and we'll then go ahead and create a new script called weapon handler. Also open it up. In the third person controller script, it's actually quite simple what we gotta do. First of all, let's select this and duplicate it and rename it to strafe speed. For the value, we'll do 0.4. Scroll down, and over here we're gonna create a public bool called strafe. Then you want to find the move function, and over here we want to find this portion right here. First thing, let's move this over above the if statement. For the if statement, we want to select this and copy it, remove it, and then we're gonna do if strafe else, and we'll paste this here. Then for the strafe, the first thing that we want to do is set the target speed to the strafe speed. Then we want to set the target rotation to be equal to the cinemachine target jaw. This basically ensures that our character is always looking forward to the direction of our camera. Then we're going to do target direction equals transform.forward times input direction.z plus transform.right times input direction.x. Also, one thing I forgot, over here we want to do transform.rotation, and we're going to do equals quaternion.euler. We'll do 0, 0, comma, target rotation, comma, 0. We then want to grab the current x and y of our animator. So we're going to do float current x equals underscore animator.get float, and we're going to get the x. Remember, at least I wrote this with a capital X. If you did, use capital or lowercase, whatever fits. Then we want to do the same thing for the y. All that remains is to set the values. For this, we're going to do underscore animator.set float. We're going to set the x float, comma, and for the value, we're going to do mathf.lerp. We're going to do from current x over to the input direction.x. And for the speed, we're going to use the speed change rate that's already by default on the script times time.delta time. Go ahead and duplicate it. Then for the input direction, we're going to do z instead of x. And for the current X, we're going to do Y, and same thing for the variable. All that remains is to test the strafing. Go ahead and select the player armature, scroll down, and make sure that strafe is set to be true, and then go over to the animator tab and make sure that aiming is set to true. If we go ahead and move, you can see that our character is actually strafing, and not just that, but it's actually taking the proper orientation towards the camera. Over here on the weapon handler script, the first thing that we want to actually go ahead and do is add a few namespaces that we're going to need. So first going to be using starter assets. Then we're going to do using Unity engine.animations.rigging. Then we want to do using unity.cinemachine. And then we want to do using system.collection. Let's go ahead and create our variables now. First, let's delete this. And then we want to create 4 headers. One called references, another one shooting, another one aiming, and another one UI. The first reference we want to create is a private Cinemachine third-person follow. Just to be clear, make sure this is the third person you're using and not this one. Basically, look for the one that has the letters and not the actual number. We're going to call this CM_camera. Then we'll create a private unserialized animator. And then we'll create a private unserialized third-person controller. Over in shooting, we'll create a private float called fire rate. Then we'll create another private float called shoot blend time. This will be how fast we'll transition over to our shoot animation. Then create a serialized private string called shoot state name. So for this, just use whatever you name your shoot state on the animator. Then we want to create a private audio clip called shoot sound. And then we'll create a private particle system called muzzle flash. Last thing we want to do here is create an unserialized private bool called can shoot. Set it to true by default. Now to the interesting part, aiming. First, we want to create 2 floats, one called camera transition speed and another one called IK transition speed. Then we want to create a private multi-aim constraint. This is going to be called aim IK. We'll then create a private float called aim vertical arm length. This will be the height of our camera when we're aiming. Then we're going to do serialized private float aim camera side. This is how far off to the right or left our camera is going to be. Then we'll create another float called aim camera distance. Go ahead and copy all of this, make it unserialized, and do not set any values to it. And then instead of aim, do default. Then the last thing is to create a public property, which is going to be a bool called aiming. Make this get private set. Then over here on the UI header, all we gotta do is create a private game object called crosshair. Let's go ahead and create our functions now. The first thing we want is the start and update functions. And then we're going to create a private void called shoot. Then we're going to create a private I enumerator called reset fire rate. Let's begin with reset fire rate. Over here, we're going to do can shoot equals false. Then you'll return you wait for seconds. And for this time, we're going to pass the fire rate. Then we'll set can shoot to be true. Let's now go over to the shoot function. And over here, we're going to do if it's not can shoot, we want to return. And then we want to play the sound, so we're going to do audio source, dot play clip at point. And over here, we're going to do shoot sound. And for the position, we're going to pass transform dot position. Then we'll play the muzzle flash. We'll then do anim.crossfade in fixed time. And for the state, we're just going to do the shoot state, comma. And for the time, we're going to do shoot blend time. And then the only thing that we need to do is start the coroutine. So we're going to do start coroutine. And for the name, I'm just going to copy this down here so there's no room for error. Over on our start function, let's first get the animator and controller. For this, we're going to do get component. Then we want to get the default camera values from when we're not aiming. For this, we're going to do default vertical arm length, equals cm_camera dot vertical arm length. Then we're going to do the same thing for the other 2 values. Let's now go over to our update function. First, we want to get the input. So for this, we're going to do aiming equals, and we're going to do input.getButton, parentheses, inside we're going to do quotes, and we're going to do fire2. Go ahead and copy this over and do bool shoot imp equals, paste it, and then instead of 2, we're going to do 1. Next up is setting the animation values. We're going to do anim.setBool, and we're going to do aiming, comma, and we're just going to pass the aiming value. Then we're going to do controller.strafe equals aiming, but we only want to aim if we're strafing. Then let's actually update our camera. So we're going to do adjust camera. The first thing we want to do is get the target values. So we're going to do 3 floats based on the vertical arm length, camera side, and camera distance. For the vertical arm length, we're basically going to say equals, if we're aiming, then we're going to get the aim vertical arm length. Else, so 2 dots, we're going to do default vertical arm length. Then we're going to do the same process over here. So if aiming, we'll then select the aim camera side. Otherwise, we'll select the default camera side. Go ahead and do the same thing for the target distance. Then over here, we're going to set the actual value. So we're going to do cm camera dot vertical arm length equals, and then we're going to do mathf.lerp. We'll pass the cm camera value. So we're going to do dot vertical arm length. For the next one, we'll pass the target vertical arm length. And for the speed, we're going to use the camera transition speed times time.delta time. Go ahead and do the same thing for the other 2 values. Let's now quickly go ahead and test everything. In the editor, first let's go ahead and select our player armature. And right under third person, let's go ahead and add the weapon handler. The only thing we want to assign right now is the cinemachine camera. So I'm just going to drag my player follow camera in there. As you guys can see, if I go ahead and aim, it does the animation, the crosshair gets activated, but we're not looking where we have to. So let's go ahead and implement the IK for that. Let's now add the last 2 steps, which are the UI and the IK. It's actually quite simple. First, let's do the UI. So we're just going to do crosshair.setActive, and for the value, we'll pass aiming. And then for the IK, we'll first get the target value. We're going to do float target weight equals aiming. If we're aiming, we're going to do 1, else we're going to do 0. Then we're going to do aimIK.weight equals mathf.lerp. We'll pass the aim.weight. Then we'll pass the target weight. And then for the speed, we'll use IK transition speed times time.delta time. And last but not least is to actually make the shoot input. We're going to do if we're aiming and we have the shoot input, then we'll go ahead and shoot. Back in Unity, we now have to set up the IK and the crosshair. So let's begin by the latter. First, I'll go ahead and create a new canvas. Then I want to go over here to where it says constant pixel size, set it to scale with screen size, and set it to 1920 by 1080. We'll now go ahead and right click on the canvas, and we're going to create a new UI image. We're going to call this crosshair. For this sprite, if you are using the tutorial assets, you should already have the crosshair sprite. I'm just going to set it there and give the image a width of 50. So we're going to do 50 by 50. Then we want to select the player armature, find the weapon handler, and assign the crosshair. Just so that we're already here, let's go ahead and assign the shoot sound. So for this, I already have the shoot sound from the actual M4 package, so you can just download that. And for the particle systems, we're just going to find the M4 muzzle flash. Last thing that remains is the actual IK constraint, so let's go ahead and set up that. As you remember, I said that we'll be using this later on. So go ahead and right click, and we're going to create a new empty game object called aimIK. Then we're going to add the multi-aim constraint. For the constrained object, you can use whatever you want, but I recommend to use spine 1. Then for the source objects, we want to add a new one, and we're going to go over to the camera, and we're going to create an empty game object, call it aimIK target. Then for the aimIK target, I'm going to give it the position that I already have set. For this, it's 1.58, negative 0.45, and then 3.92. Basically, this is the target that our character is going to be looking at. So now all we gotta do is go over here to aimIK, assign the aimIK target, and then we're gonna select the player armature and assign the aimIK. One last thing, over here on the aimIK, I recommend that you keep the weight at 0, otherwise it will start trying to look at it when it shouldn't. Just keep it at 0. In our game, we can go ahead and aim, shoot, place the effect and the sound, and if we look down, you can see that we're actually moving in the right direction and our feet are doing the proper animations. Well, this is more because of a lack of animation. But as you can see, it's all working, so I guess we have a third-person shooter. Like, subscribe, and I'm off to break my own code now.